He finally said enough. I was talking to this guy the other day, and it's pretty funny actually, because he a hard worker, very hard worker, and I know this guy pretty well. And he's a little bit younger than me. I think he's 52, and he was working as a general manager of a pretty large retail shop, and I'm not gonna go into it too specifically, and he was working his ass off for many years, just freaking, I tell you, it's crazy. Like, always on call. Like, they'd have, on his days off, they'd have Zoom meetings to talk about inventory and stuff. And it's just like, you know, he was drinking a lot, he's getting heavy, you know, he's like, dude, this is, anyway, long story short, he finally said, you know, he went in there one day, he said, I'm out. Something ticked him off, he says, I'm out. They had planned a cruise, he and his wife, and they went on their first cruise. He goes, I can't tell you what a relief it was not to have, basically be on call all the time. And, you know, I said, well, were you worried about your career prospects? Because I tell you, yeah, a little bit, but I was so stressed, I couldn't take it anymore, so I'm done. So we got a different job now. It took about a month to find a different job, but he doesn't pay as much. But he's like, dude, I can't even tell you how much less stress I have now. He downsized his career. And the funny thing is, they got 4 kids just like I do, and they only got 1 left in the house. Well, 1's in the house, but his daughter's going to college, so she's kind of out of the house, if that makes sense. But he's got basically 1 is a teenage son, that's it, who's like going to be graduating high school here in the next year or so. So his cash flow outgoing isn't nearly to the extent it was when he had his 4 kids. You see what I'm saying? And you're going to downsize their house once the youngest son leaves. And I'm telling you, man, this is the whole point about, oh, you need 80% of your pre-retirement income and all that. You just don't. You don't. But anyway, the interesting thing was, the reason we got to chat and the reason he finally said, I'm done with this, is that his brother died. His brother's only 60. His dad died young too, like at 56. He goes, you know, I don't have time for this. I can't, I don't know if I'm going to be around when I'm 65 to enjoy the fruits of my labors. I don't know. And it's just, he just intuitively got it. He goes, also knows the kids are almost all out of the house. We're not going to need this big house that we have now. My job is transferable. I can move anywhere into terms, and he doesn't work from home because, you know, if I'm not liking where I'm working in terms of the location, I can ask for to move to a different place where he end up moving to, whatever, if he ends up moving. Because I just don't need the same level of, he just got it intuitively. Guy's never been to college, blue collar worker. He goes, he was a union guy for many years. He goes, intuitively, I get it. Like, I don't need the cash flow I did when I was raising my family. Now, again, you can't just quit outright altogether because he still has a mortgage. He still has a kid in the house and whatnot, because I just couldn't do it. Now, his wife does work. So for those who asking, you know, my man Drewski, what about health care? He does work. All right. I mean, his wife does work, so his health insurance through her. But he just said, I'm done with this. I'm leaving. And he got a better job in terms of his ability to maintain his level of sense of being, and his less hours. He gets a real vacation. He gets a real time off, and he's not making as much money, but doesn't need as much money. He came to the conclusion, I just don't need as much. And I'm just telling you, if you read Larry Kotlikoff's book with Scott Burns, you'll see it. You know, and it's not so much about consumption smoothing in terms of the old economics lifestyle model. But it's kind of like that. You say, look, man, what I mean by that is there's this guy, Francis Maudlin, I can't pronounce his last name. He came up with this idea of consumption smoothing in like the 1950s. I think he won a Nobel Prize in economics for it. But basically the premise was, hey, you're going to save your money while you're working, and then you're going to spend it down when you're retired. All right, so you're basically, the idea is that your consumption will stay the same, but the source of that consumption will come from different places, either from labor while you're working, and then from the saving, spending down your money while you're retired. And yeah, intuitively that makes sense, but the problem with that is the consumption smoothing assumes that your expenses stay kind of like this, and they just don't, man. I mean, again, as I say all the time, your expenses just don't stay like that, because as the situation dictates, your expenses adjust accordingly. As you can just ask your own parents, are you spending the same amount of money as 82-year-old retirees as you did when you're 62 or 42 when you're raising a family? The answer is no, unequivocally is no. I know it's tough to believe. It's just not true that you spend the same amount of money as a 42-year-old raising 3 kids as you do as an 82-year-old. You're just not spending the same amount of money. You're just not. Even with inflation, even with healthcare. I mean, just think about it. It's just inherently obvious, and it should make sense just for anybody, even without an economics degree. Anyway, the point being was consumption smoothing model said economic life cycle model is that we spend X amount of dollars, and the question is, where does that X amount of dollars come from? It's come from labor, and then we're going to save, all right, while we're working, and that way we can dissave while we don't have the income coming in. And that's one part of the equation. But the other part of the equation is, was our spending when we leave. And just when your kids are out of the house, when your mortgage is paid off, when you downsize, I mean, it's just inherently, it just makes sense that you spend less. And as such, you don't need to be in the same old crappy old job that's grinding on you. And I call it the 3-day rule. 3 days of people pissing off, like, I'm out of here. Again, I'm not saying all people do this or you should do this. I'm just saying at the end of the day, can you do it? Because this guy's been married for a long time. Just like I always say, he had the same job for a long time. Same wife, same house, the same thing. Same wife, same house, same job. At some point, you say, you know something? I can downsize my career and have a better quality of life, even if I have less money. And that's what this guy did. And I can already tell he's lost weight. Last time I saw him, he's heavier. And I said, yeah, I can tell, man. Anyway, thought I'd share with you to start this Monday morning as you go back to the grind. Do you really need the grind of your gig? Or can you say, you know, I'll share another story. I had this guy, and he'll just say he was an IT guy, and he had a pager on his belt, the old school pager, because he's responsible for the company's website. And he said, I don't get any time off. I'm always working, blah, 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 blah. And finally, we'll just call him Marty. I said, Marty, why just keep doing this? Because, well, I just want to make sure I can. I said, anyway, one time he emailed me, or maybe he sent me a picture. He got a front loader or something like that. He's, taking down this plot of land. He's going to start raising some farm equipment. He's going to start raising some vegetables and stuff. I said, yeah, he's just loving life, man. His retired state. I said, I get it. All right, God bless. Love your thoughts.